from that.
Great, great advice. Paul in Florida, you're up.
Oh, first, I just want to
Oh,
say, Matt, thank you so much for your time. This has been incredible. I really resonated with a lot of the messages that you shared about, I think diversification is a fancy word for I don't know. The question that I have is when you were writing Burn the Boats, you talked about how you didn't want it to be like a business book and you didn't want it to be redundant, but you also wanted to incorporate a lot of like personal life stories. And that's kind of, I guess you would say, my boat that I'm battling is writing this book that I've had the title of for this is going on the second year. And I feel like the book that you wrote is kind of the style that I want to write. And I kind of want to know from your perspective, what are like two or three things that you wish that you kind of knew before you started writing that you would share that would have really helped you on your experience?
well, such great questions. Well, look, when you write a book, you do have to have again, you have to know what you're burning the boats for. What's your goal? I would say the books that fall flat are the victory laps. Nobody cares, nor should they. And a lot of books, especially business people at a certain life, like they want it to be deified, so they write a book, and and nobody cares. And so, number one, your book, unless it's in service of your ego, which is okay, just know that you're making the choice, should be in service of the reader, and every part you put in there should be engineered for an outcome on behalf of the reader to return a multiple, an ROI on that sentence. And that's really how I approached it. And as a result of making that decision, I made a lot of compromises against what feels natural for me. To be honest, like there's a part of me that lives in the academic world. I love studies. I'm lost in my world. I love words. I would like almost every sentence to be unreadable in that book, that everybody like, I don't even know what words you're using. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Like that's the book I really want to read, is that nobody wants to interview me about it. But my mission was to go ahead and to act in service of the reader. Everything flowed from that one mandate. Second thing, most business books I find are pedantic and redundant, and the first three chapters are useful, and then after that it peters out, right? I really wanted to write a book that if you got to the ninth chapter, you would get to the point and you'd feel there was more value in the ninth chapter than the first. That's how I ran my marathons. I would always run, positive splits. That last damn 26-mile fat little Matt was going to go ahead and crush that last quarter mile, even if I would die trying. And that's what I did. And I wanted the book to be the same thing. So try to carry it throughout the entire book. Organization, three, matters. So a degree of repetition at the end is necessary so that people can assimilate what it is you're trying to tell them. And then lastly, authority really matters. So when I say I don't really want to be an autobiography, yet I shared personal details, we live in a balkanized world where if I show up in this universe as a white, 40-something on Shark Tank with nice clothes, most people presume you've got nothing to learn from me. And so back to you as the author, how are you going to establish authority with the reader? What are your credentials that make them receive your message? The credentials that make my book effective the way I want it are not about wealth or stature. The logos and emblems are helpful. It's about shared experience. It's about the fact that I talk about how divorce brought me to my knees and leveled my self-esteem. Though I went from being called Doogie Howser to now being a public failure, and all the depression I dealt with. And so my point is that is how I choose to establish authority with the reader in the way I wanted to establish authority. So back to you as the author, you have to think about where do you want your authority to be drawn from if you're going to include, biographical details. I guess that's it. So what I wish I could do differently is there are some parts of the book where I feel like I don't make the case strong enough because the style of storytelling didn't allow me to be pedantic enough. And so I'm like, oh, I'm just going to add more chapters, and I don't want to write another book. So I'll just keep extending this and giving away, free chapters. So that was one thing I wish you really there's certain things that matter to you that are important, and it's okay if they're less effective because you'll feel prouder of the end result. So when your publisher is making you make compromises, or you're making compromises for the book to sell more copies, catalog those, because you're going to resent those. And there are a few that I resent, and they make me feel alienated from my own work. And I've decided to reconcile that by adding a 10th chapter. That's all me. You know what I mean? So anyway, lastly, your publisher won't do anything to help you. So just remember that.
Wow, this was a masterclass. You should definitely
Oh, and
teach a
let me say
class
something
on
to
this.
you, feedback, Paul. I've been watching your face a lot through this conversation, and you're very generous with your gesturing. I don't know if you do this in the real world. Be very kind and empathetic with your facial expressions, and to the person talking, it makes it easier because I've been zooming in on your happy face. So just want you to know.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so just kind of like real quick. So for me, the title of the book's called The Greatest Detour, The University of Adversity. It's really about kind of realizing that that's kind of my metaphor for life is this university of adversity and detailing a lot of the lessons that I've learned like you. I started going to college when I was 16. That was why I dropped out of high school. And I supported my family since I was 17. So just a lot of like stories. And now I'm here in my 20s with so many incredible people. So grateful to be here. Thank you
And
so
then
much.
one concrete piece of advice for you. So one, it should be an ownable patch of dirt that the reader could be like, this is new. It should be slightly provocative, by the way, not just like expository. So you want something that is like slight patch of dirt that 25% of the people are going to reject if you want it to transmit, right? Burn the Boats is something that reflexively a lot of people think is sophomoric or stupid or crazy or reckless. It's deliberate. Two, make sure your second line of the book that describes it. In my case, it's toss plan B overboard and release your full potential. I actually think that's that in retrospect, that was a mistake. You want that second sentence to be a very concrete payoff for the reader. You want them to know exactly what they're going to get. My book was about overcoming hesitation and fear and how to become a risk taker if it's not natural. I wish my second sentence actually was more direct about the payoff. So my advice to you is make sure that second sentence is really clear about what the reader is going to get from your book.
Phenomenal
Fun. I've never
answers.
gotten a chance to criticize my own book, which I'm enjoying a lot. So
And if anyone says they're not Googling pedantic, and I'm the only one who's going to Google pedantic after this, you're lying. I know you're lying.
you know what's
I
funny? There's
know
a
you're
word in the
lying.
book. There's noblesse oblige in the book, which I love. French phrase, right? You're obligatory.